Hey, so in continuing with our theme of relentless change, we have a Scorpio full moon coming up on Tuesday, April 23rd. So let's unpack a little bit about what this full moon will bring to the already ongoing experience of change, of transformation, new beginnings, stepping into new ways of being. I'm Marina Ormes here with your Astro Vibe for Sunday, April 21st. Yesterday, of course, was the exact Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Jupiter is a planet that takes about 12 years to go around the zodiac. So because Uranus moves slowly, by the time Jupiter comes around, Uranus has moved a little bit. So it's a little bit longer than 12 years. It's about 13, 14 year cycle. And the coming together of these two planets represents the beginning of new directions, specifically new ways that we think about ourselves. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion, of course, and abundance, and the way that things grow and expand and sometimes exceed or overflow their boundaries. But it is also the planet of how we see things. So our beliefs, our belief systems, our ways, our philosophy. So when we think about philosophy and that coming together with the planet Uranus, which is the planet of authenticity and freedom and being your own person, it brings a sort of a reset point in terms of how we conceive of ourselves, right? How we see ourselves, how we perceive ourselves. And in this particular case, the two are coming together in Taurus. That energy of Taurus is the energy of what is comfortable, what is familiar, what are our routines, what do we know we can depend on that feels reliable. So how are we changing how we conceive of ourselves in terms of what we know that we are, right? What we can rely on and feel solid about who we are. So that is changing. There is a new normal being reset with this conjunction, bringing us into new ways of having those beliefs, right? New ways of seeing ourselves, new ways of understanding who we are, defining who we are, creating a story about who we are, and how we do things in the world, and how we find our freedom, and how we show up in our authenticity. So it's really, and as I was sharing last week in my lovely meeting with Camille Michelle Gray, another astrologer, which if you missed that, definitely check it out. It was really great, on April 14th, and about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. But as we were talking about, it's really about finding new parts of yourself or opening into new forms of self-expression, of identity, of knowing yourself and how you conceive of, believe in, and see yourself. So really opening into new possibilities for who you are. And it's a process that is happening even if you're not doing it consciously, right? And that's the lovely way that astrology works, is it is happening whether we're paying attention to it or not. And we can look back at these time periods in our lives, going back to 2010 and 11, when the last conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus was, going back to 1997, going back to 1983 for some of us, and going back even further. So thinking about those sort of time periods in your life and what they might have meant or how they might have signaled a shift in your experience of life, but also how you how you step into beliefs about yourself, right? How you see yourself and who you are and what you do in the world. So as we excuse me, as we experience this expansion into new parts of ourselves, and this is a reset point that is, again, it's not confined to a particular day. As I was sharing yesterday, it emerges through the shorter term transits that are happening. And one of those is this week's full moon in Scorpio. So we are in a moon cycle that began with the Aries solar eclipse, potent, opening of a portal that can bring in shift. So this is happening in the context of this bigger reset point that's going on with Jupiter and Uranus. We also have coming up next year a conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at the very beginning of Aries. Really interesting. We also have that's another reset, another cycle that is in the process of ending. Now we're at the reaching the end of that cycle. Saturn has a 29-year cycle, so that's a longer term one. It's going to have bigger picture kind of influence and way of showing up in our lives. We also, with that Aries eclipse, we have the energy of movement, of action, of new beginnings, taking action. We have the Mercury retrograde in Aries. So as we try to move, we have that experience of something stopping us and having to like go back and figure out. I don't know about you, but like tech things in the last week or two for me have been just over the top in terms of being a factor in my life, and going back to tech support about the same issue and going around and around, like, okay, here's a new person. I have to explain the problem to them all over again until they finally figure out what you're asking. And so, I mean, that can show up in many different areas of life, right? That experience of kind of grinding your wheels and not being able to move forward on something, even as you are stepping into something that really is ready for a new beginning, something that really is beginning. And so now this week on Tuesday, we have this Scorpio full moon that forms a square, a T square, to Pluto in Aquarius, which is another piece of this bigger picture of ongoing transformation. So, and you know, I had a lot to say in the last year about Pluto going into Aquarius. We are still in the middle of that transition. Pluto is in Aquarius now. It will retrograde back into Capricorn later this year. And Pluto, excuse me, Pluto going into Aquarius takes us into this process of transformation in terms of how of freedom, of breakthrough. These are Aquarian themes as well as Uranian themes. So it's actually significant that Uranus is in Taurus even as Pluto goes into Aquarius, because Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. So there's kind of an affinity of energies there, and this experience of shakeup, of breakthrough, of things shifting and changing suddenly, unexpected developments. So with Pluto going through that sign and Uranus going through Taurus, where it's saying you need to, something is changing, and it has to do with how you find stability, what you consider to be normal. What is predictable is changing. It's not that it's I mean, it is unpredictable in ways, but right, we're establishing a new predictability. We are establishing a new normal. This is really significant in these energies, as well as Pluto going through Aquarius, where it is taking us deep into ourselves to confront what it means, what it looks like for ourselves to be a rebel, to live according to our truth, to work together with our communities in grassroots kinds of cooperative ways of bringing about change. So thinking about what we want, what it looks like to shake hands with our neighbors and make that happen. and how that brings us into the Plutonian shadow world, right? What do we need to look at in terms of our own bigger process of healing, of growth, of transformation, to let go of who we have been in the past, to allow ourselves to be present for the power of this collective experience of bringing about change, of rebellion and revolution against, you have to decide what you're rebelling against, right? What is the status quo that you want to change? And in what ways have you been perhaps rebelling against the wrong thing? That could be a factor here. So really looking deep within yourself, what is true and right for you? How is that changing? How are you seeing new dimensions, new aspects of your own truth that you couldn't see before? So that's all happening. And okay, so now we have this full moon in Scorpio activating through a T-square, Sun in Taurus, moon in Scorpio, squaring, creating a T-square to Pluto in Aquarius, all in the early degrees. So 2 degrees, 4 degrees for the full moon. So pushing us. So squares are challenges. They are creating a bump in the road that is asking us to overcome something, to get creative, to access our own greater skills and wisdom to overcome or deal with a challenge that is ultimately helping us become stronger through the experience of dealing with that challenge. Scorpio is the sign of transformation. It's a sign of working deep within ourselves to allow and support energies to move on mysterious levels. Scorpio is about the occult. It's about sacred energies. It is about, again, death and rebirth. So this process of letting go of old ways of being to step into new ones. And in that process, sometimes needing to bring what has been in the darkness into light, from the shadow to the light, where we can look at it, where what has been unconscious is coming into our awareness, so we can go, okay, that is what that energy has been inside of me or in my life, or how it's been showing up. That's where it comes from. And so the ability to release that, we need to support ourselves. We need to do appropriate self-care, get support where we need to move through some of these things, which can be on the intense side. It doesn't mean it has to be, but if it is, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It could be the process moving, right? It's trusting the bigger process, and definitely always get help if you need it. Like, this is not, I'm not telling you how to live your life. So with the Scorpio full moon creating a challenge, we are now, to put this in context of these bigger cycles that we're talking about, the outer planet cycles, we want to think about how this is not just bringing more, it's not about doom and gloom. It's not just bringing more difficulty. There is a tradition of astrology that kind of looks at things that way, and evolutionary astrology doesn't. Evolutionary astrology reminds us that within every challenge, there is an opportunity, and even the things that feel hard in our lives are also helping us to grow. So with this Scorpio moon, it's simply another piece in this process of recognizing it's going to be in alignment with the changes we're already going through. It's not going to necessarily like throw in some new factor that you haven't, haven't been dealing with already. I mean, I don't know, right? But we don't predict the future. But what I'm saying is that it is most likely will be in the picture that is already there, right? It will make sense in the context of what you are already moving through. So there is no need to fear this Scorpio full moon. It's actually just like everything else. It's helping you to transform. It's helping you to become more of who you are and step into this new set of awarenesses about your own power, your own authenticity, your own truth. And through that process of emergence, what is significant about having so many of these relentless pressures to change is that we are changing definitively. And by that, I mean that things will look different, will feel different than they did before. They already do, right? Life feels different than it did pre-pandemic, when there were things we did not know that we know now. We are also post-pandemic, meaning that we can process. We have the ability to make different choices now, right? We can process what happened. 2020 wasn't only about a pandemic. It was about many things coming to our awareness about climate change, about social justice issues, lots of things emerging. And so now we have this opportunity to really change who we're being, change how we're showing up in the world in ways that can respond to what has come into our consciousness a little bit more fully. And so in many ways, this is really about stepping into more of what we're capable of that we couldn't have discovered without the challenge of having some of those things come into our consciousness. So we are already different, and we are continuing to emerge. And that emergence can be a really positive thing if, again, we are listening to these higher possibilities, that the way that things are changing also means that this is a very creative time. It is a time when we get to shape the future, when we get to say things are breaking down, things are falling apart, things that used to hold some of the dysfunctions in place are breaking down. And so what do we want those new systems to look like? What do we want the future to be about? And how do we need to trust ourselves to live in our authenticity in ways that help us to align with these bigger change processes that are going on? Because it's not happening to us, contrary to sort of old paradigms, right? It's not happening to us. We are the agents of what is happening, and the way that things were before had partly to do with the way that we functioned in society. And we can function differently, and we can make different choices, and we can live our lives differently. And there's the Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius has to do with activism, but not only like, this calling, trying to influence things politically or knock on doors. I mean, vote, definitely vote. Everybody needs to vote, but not everybody is not everybody is called to be an activist in some of the more traditional ways we think of as activism. But we can all live our lives in ways that contribute to new paradigms through being ourselves, through sharing our authentic gifts, which was a big theme of the decade of the 2010s as we went through the Pluto-Uranus square in that decade. And we had this pressure collectively to step into who we are, to live according to our authentic gifts, and to develop and cultivate and share them and trust them and believe in what we have been learning and healing for ourselves, and to live according to that. So now we've many of us have sort of responded to that call to live more authentically, and now we are stepping into a new way of being that embodies some of these things that we're becoming. And so the reality around us, the status quo, right, is going to be a new status quo. The sort of interesting dynamic there, because status quo traditionally means the way things are, right? And so the way things are is going to be different. And we get to shape that, is what I'm saying. We are participants. We are active in living our lives in accordance with our own truth, in a way that we don't have to have it all together. We don't have it all together. That's part of the definition of being human, but we are engaging with the process in ways that help us to support that process, to take us in new directions, to help us live in ways that are more sustainable, that create new systems that really make sense for our modern lives, in what ways we need to update, to modernize, to do things differently according to who we are, and in some of those ways that some of the dysfunction from the past has been accepted, right? It's accepted. It's part of the cultural norms and so on. And so as we break free of some of those cultural norms, I'm thinking of the way that LGBTQ, how that was perceived culturally and in the past, right? Not too distant past, and how, the memes going around about women couldn't get credit cards without their husband's permission, I don't know how many decades ago, but not very many, right? So so these things that are changing, that have changed, we haven't yet really stepped into what it looks like to live from these places of greater freedom, and how we need to change our systems to be in alignment with how that has emerged into our cultural awareness, and things like civil rights, and all kinds of things that need to change around systemic racism, and how we create our institutions in ways that can be more in alignment with who we're becoming, what we're learning, and what we're learning about ourselves. And so this next 14-year cycle, beginning with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, is all about what it looks like to step into that, what it looks like for you, how this is opening up a new way of being for you, a new way of seeing yourself, telling a new story about your life, your identity, your sense of self, how you show up in the world, and how you can be yourself more fully, embracing your wholeness more fully, and doing that in a way that is in alignment with the changes you want for the world, right? Instead of just railing against what's wrong, let's talk about what we want things to look like, and how we want to create them, because those things are already happening. There are lots of people doing this work, and that's where we need to be putting our energy, is in the creative new emergence of new forms that make more sense with our humanity and our collective sense of what is right, and how that is changing. So thank you so much for being here. I also want to say that I have two things to let you know about. One is a Jupiter-Uranus reset, a recorded reading that will help you connect with your own natal chart and how this reset point is showing up for you, how the next 14-year cycle is shaping up, what it looks like is opening up, and the new directions that you that are inviting you to become more of who you are, how that's showing up. So $97 for a recorded reading. Check it out at astrologyheals.com. I also have, for the Scorpio full moon, I am now committed to providing a guided meditation for each new moon and full moon in the way that I used to in the past, if some of you have been following me for years and years. And so I've got a guided meditation for the upcoming Scorpio full moon, and the theme is emerging into new paradigms. It can support you in your own process to access your own heart's wisdom and heart's truth about what is right for you. Really powerful. If you've never experienced one of my guided meditations, it's definitely worth it. And it's only $15, so check it out. Also available at astrologyheals.com. So there you go. You could do both. You could do a reset reading and a guided meditation for the Scorpio full moon, or do whichever calls to you. Thank you so much for being here. Again, that's astrologyheals.com is my website. Thank you for subscribing to this YouTube channel. That is totally free, and I'm going to be here whether you buy something from me or not. So I'm here every day with astrology for unshakable self-care. Thank you for being here with me in these powerful times of shift and change and emergence into new possibilities for ourselves and the world. I will see you next time. Marina Ormes here at astrologyheals.com. Bye for now.